How does infrared thermography really help the building performance contractor? With the use of an IR camera, a building performance contractor may be able to determine many of the following: water infiltration, areas that may cause mold growth, insulation deficiencies, air infiltration paths, attic and crawl space bypasses, overloaded circuits. In addition to this, they can also kind of help us see what the underlying construction or framing details are in the home. So for example, what do you see here? We see a variety of colors, but we definitely can see that there are parts of this building that are transferring heat at much greater rates than the other part. So here we can see that the heat loss at the top of the building is greater than the heat transfer towards the bottom. Here, for example, we have a supply register. We can see the heat path of the air escaping from the register because we're seeing the surfaces around it which it heats. Also, we can find issues with recessed lightings. And this is with the light not even on. We can also see air infiltration around doors and windows and building components. Very easy to spot that with an infrared camera. Also find leaky windows. Find out where the windows are leaking the most. Find out areas where we need to pay close attention to in terms of air sealing. Here, for example, we can see all the structural aspects of the building. We can even see the fire blocking. So infrared cameras can also help us ascertain where studs are, where framing members are, and their building configuration. Here, for example, we can see missing insulation. Here, for example, we see a typical band joist area in a crawl space. We can see that the floor joist area on the right at the band joist is a lot colder because of the darker colors. You can see that the insulated floor joist next to it, to the right, is performing fairly well. Here, for example, we can see the impacts of air infiltration and thermal bridging at the intersection or corner of two walls. We can see at the lower part of this image there's a fair amount of air infiltration at the framing. That's typically because these areas are not very well air sealed, and there's a lot of wood members that act as a thermal bridge. Wood, for example, has an R value, a wood stud, a 2x4 of about 4.35. That's a lot less in terms of its resistance to heat transfer than the adjacent cavities, which may be insulated to R13. So here we see two images side by side, a visual image and then the thermal image. You can see that along the foundation of this building, there's quite a bit of heat loss. Also, we can see that the windows don't perform nearly as well as the walls do. How can IR imaging help a whole house energy rater? Well, number one, it helps us find defects in the insulation. It helps define building leakage in terms of big problems associated with air leaks. Also, it helps provide great visuals for the homeowner. In addition, a really important factor of IR imaging is that it helps us determine how good of a job we did at fixing the problems. So we can actually show the homeowner that we actually did the job we said we were going to do. While an IR camera can be a great tool, it's also even better when used in conjunction with other tools, like a blower door, for example. But we should use extreme caution when depressurizing the building because harmful particles can enter the living area due to this test. Like, for example, if you have a fireplace and it's got a lot of soot and we don't do a good job of isolating that, we can bring those materials into the home. Also, pressurizing using smoke may be a valuable and even safer alternative, using like a smoke pencil. Also, it's possible to use exhaust fans in the home. That can create enough pressure differences many times to give you some good results, depending upon the temperature difference. Also, a moisture meter is a good idea to have. There's two types of moisture meters. We have pin and pinless. But if we do find any signs of moisture, we can use them with the infrared camera. We can use a moisture meter to actually find out what the moisture levels are of these building materials to see if they're abnormally high. And also it's important to recognize that some of these moisture meters can even transmit data to the IR camera in real time and actually will imprint that on the image. So lots of great tools that use in conjunction with an infrared camera. It's important to recognize the limitations of IR cameras. The camera will not do everything on its own. Adjustments or fine-tuning of an image is necessary for proper analysis. Thermal imaging does not show the temperatures of objects that reflect lots of light. Polished metals, windows, mirrors, certain colored objects are examples of this. Those that are highly reflective. It's also important to recognize that thermal imaging only provides the surface temperature of an object. Thermal imaging does not see through walls. It only measures the temperatures and reflected energy off those surfaces. So the operator needs to be able to make this distinction. The camera will not do this. IR cameras are a major investment. Thermography is not an acceptable way to rate or derate a wall assembly for Title 24 code compliance. Whole house energy raters should use caution with this tool. Vintage tables take precedence unless documentation determines a better number. IR imaging is a tool, not the end-all. Should I buy a camera? What is your need and purpose for the technology? Can you find this information that you're looking for through other diagnostic testing methods? An IR camera helps the inspector when the rest of the senses won't do the trick. Touch, see, hear, and smell. An IR camera is a complementary tool, good to have in the bag. Building Science Education 101, know the building first. Also have non-intrusive moisture detection, extra tools. Test in and test out. Ask yourself, what's in your budget? And what are the outsourcing possibilities? Is it cheaper to hire someone else with the equipment? There are also many sources available for more information. Certainly the CalCERC's BPC certification, ResNet, BPI, and of course, many of the infrared camera manufacturers. An IR camera can be a very effective tool in helping us determine the performance of buildings, how well we did in terms of insulating as well as air sealing.